I have the pleasure to welcome you all to tonight's Zoom event entitled Art is an Absolute Play, on the occasion of the publication of the special issue of the literary journal Bohemica Literaria, dedicated to Jan Patočka and his thinking on art and literature. The whole event is live streamed and recorded. So I want to stress this, to point this out. And before giving the floor to our first speaker of tonight's event, as was announced, we will have three parts. So before starting, I would like to remind us of the larger frame of this project. It actually goes back to 2017, when me and Centre d'études tchèques here at Université Libre de Bruxelles co-organized a conference dedicated to Charter 77 and Jan Patočka. The conference was initiated by colleagues, philosophers from the Catholic University in Leuven, where Patočka lectured in the 1960s. We also collaborated on that occasion with the Czech Embassy, Czech Consular Section here in Brussels, and with the Czech Centre of Brussels. This collaboration is a continuous and very fruitful collaboration, and I would like to thank the director, Jitka Pánek-Jurková, Eva Petráková, and Daniela Vervloeft. I thank them in particular for all the technical aspects of the organization of tonight's evening, and I'm very happy that in the frame of their larger project, Grow Our Humanity, they also contribute to increasing the awareness of Jan Patočka's work throughout various activities. And today's lecture of Peter Fischer is also inscribed within this larger framework. When we commemorated the 40th anniversary of Charter 77 with our conference, we also commemorated one of the key documents of contemporary human rights movement, which Patočka definitely helped to shape in a decisive way. And it is thus a happy coincidence that today, on the 10th of December 2020, we celebrate the International Day of Human Rights and the 50th anniversary of the foundation of Amnesty International, another important actor in the field of human rights. So before giving the floor to Peter Fischer, I would like to dedicate solely in the name of the Academic Senate of Université Libre de Bruxelles, which I am a member of, to our fellow colleague and academic, Dr. Jalali, who was a former visiting professor to our sister university here in Brussels, VUB, and who is currently imprisoned in Iran and who is in danger of imminent execution. Our academic involvement in his cause, I believe, is coherent with Patočka's concept of an academic and our involvement in society. So thank you for keeping him in your minds. And so now it is really time to start with the first part of our evening, and I have a great pleasure to give the floor to Peter Fischer, Czech philosopher, journalist, and political commentator. I would like to mention at least some of his numerous activities and engagements, his work with the major newspapers in the Czech Republic, such as Lidové noviny or Hospodářské noviny, where he headed the cultural section, his work for the Czech redaction of the BBC, and his work as a moderator of several cultural programs on the Czech TV. For his work, he received the prestigious prize of Ferdinand Peroutka and he significantly shaped the programming of the major Czech cultural radio channel Vltava. But today he's here also as a former student of philosophy, who in the early 1990s studied at Charles University in Prague with several of Patočka's disciples. And he will share with us today the continuous inspiration that he draws from Patočka's work and the way this thinking dialogues with his own philosophical concerns. Thank you again, Petr, for joining us today, and I give you the floor.
It's a great honor for me to be here, especially because maybe it's connected also my teacher, Ivan Chvatík, who is now the chief of archive, Jan Patočka. And we were in very close connection because we translated Heidegger together, and I made degrees by him and so on. In 1990s, was the Prague University full of Patočka. Everywhere was Patočka. The teachers were came from this very close circle of Jan Patočka. So we have been all influenced very strongly by Patočka thinkings about Greek tradition and modern problems, about the Husserl and Heidegger. But today I should speak on topic a little bit different, so about art. And maybe I will be starting with a little bit strange phrase or sentence. And I would like to say for the very beginning that for me, art is a frame. Maybe I could say a cut. Anyway, my haircut is actually completely new, and maybe it's something like art as well. Art is for me reality cut and framed. This thesis, for which I have no particular proof now, especially now at hand, is inspired by a quote, maybe quote, it frames our today's meeting over art, criticism and thinking of Jan Patočka. It is framed by Patočka's sentence, maybe Patočka's sentence, I don't really know. Art is an absolutely play. Perhaps this sentence has been chosen not necessarily intentionally, because neither art nor thought can be played without limits, without a frame, without a motto or another limits. Patočka's quote is for me slightly awkward as in his thinking on aesthetics. Patočka always sees art in a particular concept, even in its historical perspective, in its development in time. He sees it as a situated activity, not really something that is ab solus. That's mean is in Latin, base of word absolute. It is something which is severed from everything else, something which is itself and its own. Certainly it's never anything frivolous, detached, unrelated to anything else. And if it is a play, then certainly by Patočka, then certainly in the Finkian sense. So I mean Eugen thinker, philosopher, who the best known work called Play as the Symbol of the Word. And that is a play which is at the same time a play of the word, ontological structure, or I could say a layer permeating the universe. Art is an eternal companion of philosophy. Maybe philosophy and art are twins, historical twins. They intertwine their hands in the Greek word poesis, which means creation. Art creates images of reality, while philosophy strives to create damning concepts. Art and philosophy have been rivals from the start as well. Art is a dangerous seducer, sometimes seeing further or very differently since thought limited by conceptual discursivity. So that Plato, the iconic thinker of the Western philosophy, is afraid of poets, and in his dialogues warns against their images of poets. At the same time, Plato uses their words to enchant his interlocutors. I mean, of course, the metaphors, analogies, the myths, the great Plato's invention in the history of thinking is, in my opinion, a philosophical myth. He seduced, which is in dialogues, he seduced the people, which is something he reproached art for. The artist's soul, same as that of philosopher, thinker, has seen eternal ideas on its ascent to celestial heights, but the artist offers only their images. He imitates without providing an insight into the ideas themselves as the philosopher can, since his activity of philosopher is not meditated, but I could say direct. He sows the seeds of knowledge directly into the soul, his pupils, because he saw the true ideas better than artists, fully, I could say. No doubt this has its power aspect, knowledge is power, but we have no space to develop it here, maybe in another time. This ambiguity of the relationship between art and philosophy, the parallel existence and interconnectedness on the one hand, this refusal and exclusion on the other, has run through the whole history of the Western culture. Art and philosophy, Jan Patočka says, have one more important link, and that is relation to truth. As it is understood by Heidegger, it is true as aletheia, disclosure of something which is not visible at first sight, and which must make itself manifest or revealed only through creation, poiesis in Greek language. This can be seen already in Hegel's Aesthetics, which Patočka translated into Czech, and in which he found an important passage on the relation to truth. I will be quote now what Patočka says. Hegel does not hesitate to determine the very essence of art as being the kind of what defines the spirit most deeply, that there is clarity, understanding, truth. Art is a kind of truth, says Patočka. And his aesthetic essay, same as those in general philosophy, follows the changing historical relation of man to truth, which applies also to the relation to art as one of the paths to truth, or I could say kinds of truth. There is an essential term, says Patočka in his most important study in aesthetics called Art and Times, and will be published in 1966. While in traditional art, the sense is guaranteed beforehand, wrote Patočka, as, again Patočka, its function in art in this time is to point to something else which is outside art. In modern art, since the 19th century, the sense is created in work itself. In the epoch of artistic culture, as Patočka calls it, art just imitates the word and its connections and serve mainly for religious purposes. Therefore, it points to truth which is generated elsewhere. The mimetic function of art disappears only with the radical entry of the scientific world onto the scene of history, when art emancipates itself from religion, philosophy, and science. Then comes the artistic epoch, or the epoch of reflection, in opinion of Patočka, in which sense is created in the work itself. And in this sense, from a point of view, we could speak about art as the absolute play. But briefly said, the work of art in Patočka's imagination used to be a glass which either magnified or strengthened, variegated the effect of the word it strives to imitate. Art is still mimesis. Today, it creates an independent word which refers only to itself. So I would like to repeat again the statement about art as an absolute play, which framed his attempts at lecture today, stems precisely from here. Jan Patočka wrote a number of interesting essays, in particular works of art in artists. He wrote on theater, on Karel Čapek novels, on F. X. Schalda critics, on Beethoven, because Patočka also played very good the piano, or on Karel Hynek Mácha, the first really modern Czech poet. Patočka was, however, never interested in the works of art per se, as such, in this absolute play, art for art's sake. Maybe we could say it in French, l'art, pour l'appeler cette expression magnifique que les jouets historiquement, le rôle très important. This term, l'art pour l'art, is not used much today, as artists were often understood as means to express a critical stance towards society or even politics, by Patočka, of course, in the meaning of his crucial philosophical concepts, care for soul or care for community, and soul of community, the care for soul of community. Patočka is not interested in aesthetics or history of art, but in philosophy. Even Mácha is interesting, this Czech poet, the romantic poet, is interesting for Patočka as an existential poet, expressing the essential split of modern man, hanging somewhere between his natural word, the word for life, Lebenswelt auf Deutsch, and the construction of word made possible by modern analytical science. In this, Patočka is fully, in my opinion, under the influence of Husserl thoughts on the crisis of European sciences from the 1930s, and of course, Heidegger's mystical philosophical attempt to return to being. Patočka asked the question how to, also as Heidegger and Husserl, how to overcome this split, this spiritual crisis. And same as Heidegger, he sees the path of the return to an authentic existence, which does not see the world as an object designed for purposeful treatment, but as a whole of intersubjective happening. We happen in the world, and the world, which is element with its elements, chords and truths in us and through us, happen with us. This is mainly to boldly stated Patočka's legacy, Patočka's philosophical mysticism, coming from Erinnerung or appropriation of thinking of this double age, Husserl and Heidegger. How does art stand in this effort to save the world and to overcome, überwinden, the spiritual crisis of the European societies, the West societies? There can be no doubt that Patočka is strongly influenced by the apocalyptic tone of Heidegger's thinking on technology. In the origin of the work of art, Heidegger presents art It means the work of art is a specific place in which we can mean the world as it naturally happens. Not as we construe it scientifically as object of rational analysis. There is an ecstatic meeting with existence that it happens as a play of the living and the dead, the heaven and the earth, matter and shape, and so on. Contrary to the skeptical Heidegger, Patočka believes that, maybe it's a little bit strong, but maybe believes that art still can organize and act such a play. The same as an ethical stance with abstracts from all particular practical connection and focuses on the values of truthful knowledge and relation to the world, the others, itself, the artistic creation too, is a kind of protest against this technical automatism. Art, the same as aesthetics, is the most authentic expression of human freedom, which is the strongest poetic or creative poet from poiesis, Greek word, creative power. It's easy to see why Patočka engaged so much in the trial with the plastic people of the universe, the Czech rock group or alternative group, although their music was foreign to him, and actually he didn't like it. In the modern times, art has acquired the status of an independent area. In the form of art history, it even transformed itself into a field of study, but also became operation, manufacturing technology operation, producing mass-marketed object of art. So art is also the business. Despite this, Patočka thinks it has retained its privilege of openness and freedom, which can liberate people from long-standing technological and utilitarian business relations. Albeit it is increasingly difficult today. We get rid of the burden of the will, which was something that Arthur Schopenhauer most appreciate about art, since the artist is then able to see, I will be quoting, the essential lying beyond the scope of things. So he's able to see ideas or something like the beauty. So let me finish with that. For Patočka, in my opinion, art is something like an antichambre of philosophical insight, and an area which is contrary to its twin philosophy, endowed with huge persuasive power, as it expresses itself aesthetically, making it possible to perceive the essences of the world. I hope I don't distort Patočka too much. Maybe it will be a bit provocative when I am in the end going to paraphrase the famous Heidegger sentence from the postmortem published interview for Der Spiegel from 1976. Only some God can save us. Now, I would say only some artist can save us. Nur noch ein Gott, Künstler, kann uns retten. Thank you very much for your attention. That's all by me.
Thank you so much, Petr, for this food for thought. And I see that there are some questions in the chat. I see that there is a question by Graham Henderson. Is art specially privileged in Patočka's thinking as a tool for the phenomenological understanding of the world? does he think we can recover the more undifferentiated relationship of the ancient Athenians with the arts?
Yeah, I mean, the Patočka is completely based on phenomenology attitude to the word. So I mean also that it was for him, the phenomenology was the first place for his thinking, and from that basis, he started to think about the aesthetics, objects, and work. It wasn't for him not the main topic, because he was. He has lectures in university in 40s, and from 50s 60s he was in academic field, and he had to do something different to his main topic in phenomenology. So he started to translate this work in artworks and aesthetics by Hegel and so on. And but anyway, he still was completely deeply rooted in phenomenology. So from phenomenology started also his typical interpretation what art is and what means for modern society.
Do you want to add something, Graham, or to react to Peter's response? I think that you are muted.
I'm muted.
Yeah. It's tricky, yeah. Right?
Thank you very much for that, Peter. I'm just really interested by the way that Patočka thinks back into the Socratic relationship with the world and the self-questioning of the world. And I wondered whether the arts had a particular special role to play in that self-questioning attitude of his.
Yeah, I mean, this interpretation of Greek thoughts and Greek philosophy, the very start of philosophy, it was also, I mean, that's also the Heidegger inspiration, and Husserl inspiration, not so, but Heidegger, because Heidegger wanted to find something in the very beginning of philosophy. Something was forgotten, and for me also, that when you read Patočka, anything, what do you find? So this insight, this very strong influence of his interpretation of Greeks, which is very important for Czech philosopher and for whole intellectual field and society here in the Czech Republic, because it's a very strong interpretation. And I mean, it's in all lyceum and gymnasium in Czech Republic, you can find this interpretation, this Patočka's interpretation of Greeks. So yeah, that is very strong influence. And always when do you read Patočka about art, is also for me, and it's because I thought about this twins, the philosophy and art as the twins of history. I mean, that's I found it in Patočka and his interpretation of this Greek times, and this interconnection. This is a fate of Western world as well.
Thank you.
I also had a question, Petr, when you were talking about Patočka's attitude, or potentially a distance vis-a-vis of that l'art pour art, or in general more formalist oriented art. How do you understand this, or how do you interpret it? I was, for example, quite intrigued by his really negative appreciation of the work of Věra Linhartová. It was only in a private correspondence that is published in the volume Umění a čas with one of his German colleagues, but he was reacting to the German translation of Věra Linhartova's book in the 1960s, and he was very critical of her. Do you think it was basically because of this kind of neo-avant-garde formalist framing of her writing, or do you have like your understanding of this relation of Patočka to this type of literature?
Maybe this type of literature is a little bit too close to philosophy. That's my answer. And this is a place for philosophers, not for the writers and artists, you know? Maybe that's a very easy explanation. That's all, because I mean, that's what they do with the words is something very similar to that what philosophers make with concepts, with notions, and they draw the word with the concepts. When you read the Věra Linhartova and this, as you said, the formalist, more formal writers, modern writers in 60s or 70s, so you can say that that's something very similar to work of philosopher. Maybe he didn't understand what does it mean, because for Patočka, I mean, it's between art and philosophy still some line, not border, but line. And you can say that art and that is philosophy. I mean, that's the problem, to understand art as a philosophy in this very direct style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but on the other hand, it's interesting that he was so appreciative of Ladislav Klima's work, and he's also like entering into the philosophy.
Play. This is the same play as Schopenhauer, and I think that Klima is for Patočka more philosopher than writer, and also for me.
Okay.
I don't know what's your meaning is, but I mean, the Klima is in the first place as philosophers. I always read his books as a Nietzschean or Schopenhauerian philosophy in writing. So maybe in Linhartova, it is maybe this very formal art and abstract art is very. It's not the place for Patočka to understand deeply. So anyway, the Klima is philosopher.
Yeah, I don't want to monopolize the discussion. I would really like to give space to other people present if they want to ask questions
maybe
or comments. Yeah, I see. I'm very happy that our students are also present, and I'm also very proud of them that they are courageous enough to ask questions in English. It's not their mother tongue. So there is one question by Julian. Do you think that art can also be considered as philosophy?
Of course, it's interconnected. I said it. It's always just like the shadow of a philosopher, and yeah, this connection is very faithful for me and very useful. And also you cannot maybe imagine any philosopher without any connection with art, because philosophers, as in the 90s said one of the pupil of Jan Patočka, Petr Rezek, philosophers are people, they wanted to be artists, but they have no power for that.
I would also like to invite our students, if they are shy to ask in English, they can also ask in French. I can potentially translate. Je sais qu'il y a plusieurs étudiants qui sont connectés. Si vous voulez poser des questions, vous pouvez les poser en français. Je peux traduire si ça pose un problème, si vous voulez participer au débat. no, I think they are a little bit scared of you. Okay, are there some other questions from the other?
I have a question. So it's sort of a related question, but I think the danger when philosophy gets involved in the arts is that the artworks just get used to repeat a philosophical framework that's kind of already been worked out, and the artwork just becomes an example of that philosophical idea. And I think Heidegger seems like an exception to this, because his philosophy really does seem to come out of readings of poetry like Rilke and Husserl. And I wonder, how do you see Patočka in this, on this spectrum? Do you feel like he sort of really does take his cues philosophically from works of art, or is he sort of using the artworks as an example to talk about philosophical ideas that he already has?
Do you mean the Heidegger attitude?
No, I mean, Heidegger, I feel like he does, sort of take the art seriously as like a primary source for thinking philosophically. Mm-hmm. I wonder if you think Patočka is the same in that respect, or whether Patočka kind of commits the sin of finding in the artwork what he already, thinks philosophically.
I mean, the main question for Heidegger was, what can we do to distort or distract, make a distraction of this subject-object style of thinking, which is for Heidegger started very deeply in the Greek time, but especially in the Descartes period, and by the René Descartes. But what can we do to distort this subject-object thinking? And the art was, of course, the tool for it. Maybe it wasn't not the answer, but the tool for it. And I mean that for Patočka was not so strong. Patočka was not so strong connected with Heidegger with this question of art, but for him was more important this how to distort this subject-object connection, but not the art was not the preferred tool for that. I mean, the Patočka would like to start with reflection. That's because his ideas started in this Greek time. And what is the philosophy? Never-ending reflection on myself. So that's Patočka's answer. Maybe that's this path to the true, to find this distraction or distortion of subject-object relation. But for Heidegger, yeah, that's a Heidegger mysticism, because in art is something more powerful than in any other place. So you can feel in art, you can feel the being with Kapp's being. I mean, right. A strong being.
Thanks.
Thank you for a question.
Okay, is there some other question? So it will probably be a last question. It's again from one of our students. So he says, I haven't read Heidegger, but would it be possible for you to point out the major similarities between Heidegger and Patočka? Well, that's a big question.
Yeah, nice. That's very difficult, because there are people, they say that the Patočka, for example, the late work is only the translation Heidegger to Czech. Of course, it's anecdote, it's a joke, but not so really, because for me is for my philosophy studies in the 90s, it's this question is lasting till now. Where is the difference between Heidegger and Patočka, and what is not a translation and what is original? because we can say that's a great commentary to Husserl and Heidegger work. Of course, it's very strong, but I mean, the Patočka is originally in this interconnection, ethical, artistical levels of the society, in finding the answer to this question, how can we find the path from this crisis of West societies, and of course, West science. So yeah, this is something. When you read heretic essays, so you can find Heidegger in every second page, but interpretation. That's an interpretation. But without Heidegger and Husserl, wouldn't be Patočka thinking. Of course, it's a very strong influence.
Thank you so much.
Anyway, Heidegger is more mystical in words, also in the writing. You can read it. You can't read it, Heidegger, without this magic of words. That is not that what Patočka do. There's not so magical a frivolous work of words and writing. It's not in the Patočka work, but this is a Heidegger speciality.
I saw that there might be a comment by Jan Frey, if I saw it correctly.
Yes, you have seen it correctly. Just good evening, everybody. I just did a short remark to the last answer by Petr Fischer. I think we can see a clear difference between Heidegger on one hand and Patočka on the other. Just to put it briefly, Heidegger discovered that we are not observers in the world, that we being in the world, we have to care about the world, about ourselves. But according to Patočka, he overlooked two essential things. First, that we are bodily beings, and secondly, that we are social beings. This Patočka, when he was late, one of his last cycles of lectures, had a title, Body, Community, Language, World, and this body and community. This was something that he was missing strongly in Heidegger. So I think this is a apparent and important difference between Heidegger and Patočka. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not against.
Well,
so we can say maybe also that, but by Heidegger is when we are talking about society, is a notion mid-light. So when you are connected to the other with this mid-light, so that's all. That's a society is only the connection to the other, and not the organization and so on. And of course, the care for soul of communities is not the question for Heidegger.
Well, thank you.
Anyway, you can write. You can if you read his Schwarzen Heften, so this notes, black notes in English. So you can find it's very deeply. They say this is a little bit explanation why he was a Nazi or he was against the Jews and so on. But you can find in this Schwarzen Heften and black notes handbooks, or how can translate it. So you can find it the sentences which are talking about the society in this historical and apocalyptical meaning. And for Heidegger, is the main question maybe the same as for Donald Trump. That's what I mean for the word, and what I can do with the word for forever. So how they will be me remember the word, I will be remember word as a great man who make the different history. So that's a problem by Heidegger with society.
Thank you.
It's completely different in Patočka, of course.
Yeah, I'm sure that we'll be able to continue in this discussion at the end of the evening. We have opened a window really at the end of the evening to really enjoy as much free discussion. And I'm really happy that we already have such a lively discussion, because it's often quite difficult to do on a Zoom. So I'm very happy that we are actually achieving this illusion of real life meeting. So thank you so much, Petr. I hope
thank you very much for the invitation.
To stay. We'll discuss other events, upcoming events concerning Patočka and his English translations at the end of the evening. So I hope you'll be able to stay with us. And thank you again. I will now pass to the second part of our evening that was prepared by our students, by our master and PhD students who yesterday took part in a workshop with a lecturer, a colleague from DAMU, Jan Mrázek, who is teaching workshops on dramatic education at DAMU, and together with our lecturer of Czech language, Jitka Hejlová, they organized this workshop, and they prepared a short video as a result of this workshop and discussion of Patočka that they had yesterday throughout the day. And one of our master students, Joanna Ganovsky, is courageous enough to present to you tonight their work, and to explain a little bit how they perceived it and how they enjoyed thinking about Patočka. So thank you, Joanna, for being with us, and thank you so much for taking the floor now.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, everyone. So, as Professor James said, yesterday we had the chance to participate into a workshop called The Autonomy of Human Being. It was organized by Le Centre d'études tchèques in cooperation with a lecturer, Jan Mrázek from Prague. The workshop had two parts. The first one, in the first part, we mainly worked on Jan Patočka's text Čím je a čím není Charta 77, which addresses the relationship between human autonomy and the mechanism of power in a totalitarian state. Then we eventually ask ourselves the question, what mechanism do we stand against today? And in the second part, we related this topic to the topic of self-knowledge and care of soul. Then with that, we collected, with what we collected along the way, we portrayed it into a performance taking place on a social network, taking place on Facebook. So for us, it was very interesting. It was an interesting progress to discover who was Patočka, his philosophy, but also through the experience, we discovered ourselves, because it led us into a big dive into our souls and its layers, trying to find our truth. So I hope you will enjoy our video, and that's it.
Thank you so much, Joanna, and we'll have some time to discuss the video after we've seen it. And thank you for this great presentation.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, thank you for the video. The timing and the theme that you chose is really interesting, because yesterday the Czech embassy, in collaboration with Václav Havel Library in Prague, organized yet another Václav Havel dialogues here in Brussels. And the topic was actually social media, the freedom of expression and its limits. And I think that social media are really part of our everyday lives, especially of the lives of students and young people. And it's really interesting to think about what would Patočka have to say about the identity that we create for ourselves on social media. So I really loved the take that you had on this. I think that there are just very laudatory comments to all of you, Joanna, Astrid, Jitka, Honza. Do you have some questions or comments, things that you would like to ask about the workshop? No. Well, I'm really looking forward, Joanna, to talking more about that with you, and we'll definitely use the output for the classes and for our future discussions. So thank you so much for this work. Thank you, Jitka, as well, for the whole event. And so now we move to our third part of the evening, where we would like to share with you the new issue, the special issue of Bohemica Literaria, the literary journal published by Masaryk University in Brno. And the texts that are published, I'm really happy that many of the contributors are here with us tonight, and we are very, very glad that we really convinced them to share with us their work, because we believe that our volume presents something specific in terms of Patočka research, especially in English. Even if Patočka did not write a systematic treatise on aesthetics and literature, he was publishing a huge huge number of articles and studies on this topic throughout his life. And until now, there has been but few systematic efforts to evaluate and consider these texts in their totality. And so this present volume desires to be one of the first steps in English in this direction. As we mentioned in the editorial to the volume, there have been publications on the topic in Czech, among them that of Jan Patočka, one of our contributors, who is here with us tonight, and his book from 2018, published by Karolinum, Umění a péče o duši u Jana Patočky, Art and Caring for the Soul in Jan Patočka. There have been also of the journal Philosophica et Historica Studia Aesthetica, published by Karolinum, and one of the volumes was published in English and also deals with Patočka's thinking on art. But our publication is really one of the first systematic efforts in the reflection on Patočka's thinking on art and literature. And so I would like now to discuss briefly the contributions to the volume, and then I will give the floor to my co-editor, Jan Tlustý, that I thank immensely for his extremely precise work on the volume and the preparation of the edition. I would like to ask Eva if she can share with us the list of the studies that are part of the volume, and if you allow, I would like to talk briefly about the articles that are present in the volume. First of them is that of Jonathan Bolton, a guest from the unknown, Antigone and Jan Patočka's cultural criticism. And Jonathan writes on the relation between Patočkas. It's a very original contribution to this debate. And he writes on the relation between Patočka's cultural criticism and his commitment to Charter 77. And he suggests that careful reading of texts dedicated to art and literature disclose Patočka's clear evolution of the understanding of civic commitment and responsibility. The article of Rajendra Chitnis, who is also with us here tonight, and I'm very happy about it. A message from a Bohemian interculture, Patočka's translation of Durich's Boží duha, discusses the forward, Patočka's forward to his famous 1975 translation of Jaroslav Durich's novel God's Rainbow, and it focuses on the complex relationship of a literary text and a text of interpretation. And according to Rajendra Chitnis, while having undoubtedly contributed to the promotion of the novel, Patočka's interpretation also played a role in the reduction of the literary texts to its historical context of Czech-German relationship, which diminishes the universal resonance of Durich's novel. And we will have the occasion to discuss the question of translations at the end of of our evening tonight. I write about the numerous Patočka's interpretations of literature and the way in which Patočka links them with more general philosophical categories and how he introduces into them political readings. And I try to seize the development of these categories through, for example, the interpretation of Ivan Vyskočil's texts. Erin Plunkett, in her article New Human Possibilities in Patočka's Philosophy of Literature, analyzes Patočka's thinking against the backdrop of phenomenology, and she discusses in depth the study, the writer's concern to demonstrate Patočka's understanding of specificities of literary writing. And she puts forward Patočka's definition of literature as an individual capturing of life's meaning. The article of Jan Tlustý, my co-editor, draws on Patočka's major studies on art, and following similar argumentation as Erin Plunkett, he stresses Patočka's idea that art has the ability to reveal the meaning of existence and remind us of the phenomenological nature of our life world. And he shows the parallels with the thinking of other philosophers such as Paul Ricoeur. And in the second part, he traces the influence of Patočka's thinking in the works of Czech literary scholars such as Zdeněk Kožmín and Milan Jankovič. Ondřej Sládek focuses on the dialogue between structuralism and Patočka's phenomenology, and he introduces Patočka's view on structuralism and also his personal relation to Czech representatives of structuralism such as Jan Mukařovský, and he outlines the differences between structuralist approach and Patočka's phenomenology. Jan Jossel closely traces the influences on Patočka's concept of art, especially those of Hegel and Heidegger, and he shows how his critical dialogue with the thinking of Roman Ingarden contributed to Patočka's refining of his own history of art in the 1970s. And we decided to include also a part from the archives to the volume. And it's the time when I give the floor to Jan Tlustý, who will talk about this. Thank you.
Good evening. Petra, thank you very much for your introduction of Bohemica Literaria, and also for your contribution and co-editing. So it was great, and Thank you very much. And I would like to thank also the authors for their papers, because I know it was difficult to work on text at these times due to the closed libraries, work at home, etc. I am very happy that you reserved your time and participated in the issue. So once again, thank you very much for that. I would like to add only a few comments. As you can see, apart from the new studies, we decided to publish a translation of 2 older texts by Czech literary scholars Milan Jankovic and Zdeněk Kožmín. They are in the section called From the Archives. For both scholars, Patočka's ideas were a significant impulse in developing the concept of the meaning of a literary work and existential dimension of interpretation. At the same time, they related Patočka's ideas to the tradition of Czech structuralism, especially to the aesthetics of Jan Mukařovský. Unfortunately, due to the political circumstances, Kožmín and Jankovic weren't allowed to publish their works in the period of normalization, and their concepts of interpretation weren't known and commented on in the context of world literary theory. So we wanted to honor the legacy of these 2 theoreticians and show to English-speaking world how Patočka also inspired Czech literary studies. I would also like to thank Matouš Hořínek, who translated their texts. It wasn't easy work because there were many references and quotations, and we wanted to find English translations if there were any. We had a great discussion with Matouš and Petra about the translation of Holland's poem called Tak co, What Now, which is interpreted by Zdeněk Kožmín. We discussed many variants. It was difficult to express, especially Holland's irony. Finally, we decided to publish Holland's poem both in Czech and in English. One more comment on to Milan Jankovic. Maybe you know that Jankovic attended Patočka's home lectures in the 70s, and he took also a number of photos of him. On one of the first pages of Bohemica Literaria, you can find a photo that has not been published yet. It's a variation. There are some other photographs by Milan Jankovic. Finally, I'm very happy that I can announce that Bohemica Literaria was published yesterday. And next week, I am going to send a printed version to all authors. Because we have open access to the journal, you can also download all the articles from our website. Jitka will copy the address to the chat now. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Jan, for the presentation of this important part of our volume. And I'm very happy. I'm sure that we'll have time for a discussion, but I'm very happy now to give the floor to Erin Plunkett, who is our co-contributor, but who also takes part in a great project of English translation of Patočka. I see that Alex Zucker is here, who is the translator of the project, that Graham is here, that the colleagues from Patočka's archive in Prague are also online. So it's a great occasion to talk about this this project, and it's a pleasure to give the floor to Erin now.
Thank you. So yes, it's very nice to have everyone working on the project here. I don't know if Ivan is here. Haven't seen him yet, but Jan is here. So a couple of years ago, Graham Henderson, who you see on your screen there, approached me about producing some of Patočka's text in English. And that's when this project was born. So Alex Zucker is our amazing translator. Yvonne and I are serving as editors on the project, and the focus or the idea behind this this selected edition of Patočka's texts in English would be to draw in new readers in the Anglophone world, expand Patočka readership beyond the quite narrow reception it's had thus far in English. So part of that will be the quality of the translations themselves. Part of that will be the fact that we're translating so many texts into English that don't currently exist in English. So I think something like 65 or 70% of the book will be entirely new translations. And then there'll be some other key texts that do exist in English, but are important to have in a selected edition, so that people encountering Patočka's work can see some of his key ideas. And the framing of the book is to show the relevance of Patočka's ideas for us now. And I'm really pleased to see how it fits in nicely with this special issue, because one of the decisions we made early on was to translate a lot of Patočka's writings on arts and culture, both because these are in some sense more accessible than his other philosophical writings for a more general audience, although still difficult, as all of you know, but also because you can see in them a kind of new way of thinking about the political. And I noticed in a lot of the contributions to this special edition that a lot of people are making this connection between the way that Patočka writes about the arts and the way that he thinks politically. So that's something that we were intrigued by as well. And in London, was it just last year? It seems like 10 years ago, we had a conference on kind of rethinking the grounds of the political in Patočka, using some of these writings in arts and culture. So the book will be a selection of writings on phenomenology, on arts and culture, and on the philosophy of history. And as I say, most of them will be newly available. I could go on, but I can also stop.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I am not the only one who has questions concerning this project. So maybe I will start, but I will of course give space to other people as well. I have one question for you, Erin, and one question for Alex Zucker. I saw the choice of the text that you've selected for the volume. What was the key? How did you decide to for these texts? And for Alex Zucker, well, you've translated rather difficult Czech literary texts into English. How does Patočka stand in comparison to difficult texts you've already translated?
Alex, would you like to answer the question first?
Thank you for having me here. So the first thing I need to say is that I would not be able to translate these texts without Ivan Chvacik and Aaron Plunkett reading them after me, because I don't have a background in philosophy, let alone phenomenology. And I had read some of Patočka's texts in the past, but mainly the ones in connection with his relationship to Charter 77, which I was following back in the 80s, which is actually what brought me to Czech literature in the first place. Yeah, I'm constantly comparing the difficulty of these texts to things that I've translated and am translating. It's funny because when I first started translating for this project, I thought, oh, this is so much simpler than what I've been translating from literature, because the sentences are very clear and there's a starting point and there's an end point. There are no ellipses, for instance, like Joachim Topol uses. There's no flights of fancy like in, I don't know, Petra Hulova. There's no, you know, dialects that I have to hunt down like in Josef Jedlička, you know, no historical, but it's interesting, and in that sense, it isn't as difficult, but it's a strange thing that people who have translated probably will know what I'm talking about, that it's a strange phenomenon where you can actually translate words and sentences without knowing what they mean, if you can get a hold of the syntax and the grammar. And it might not actually make the same sense that the author had in mind, but it will make sense. And so I feel like that's what I'm doing. And then I have to rely on Ivan and Aaron to say whether this sense makes the kind of sense that Patočka would be trying to make, or whether it's just my sense, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Alex is being very modest there, but yeah, Ivan is doing a lot of philosophical heavy lifting, to be sure.
Absolutely.
So in terms of the selection of the texts, I mean, we had a lot of back and forth on this, of course, but the final selection, I think, reflects texts that we feel have relevant themes for contemporary discussions. So, for example, I was quite keen to have texts on phenomenology and technology, and some of Patočka's later writing on asubjective phenomenology, because I think this has a lot to offer contemporary discussions in phenomenology, as well as the rest of philosophy, and more broadly in culture, kind of thinking beyond subject and object, as Pedro was saying earlier, and also responding to this crisis that Husserl describes, and that Heidegger kind of develops in his own way in his essay on technology. So those themes are very important for me, and those take up the bulk of the phenomenology section of the book, and kind of talked as well to some other Patočka scholars about what texts they would like to see translated into English, and then of course Jan and Ivan, knowing you know, the archives and what has been translated already, we're able to suggest the kind of most prominent texts that really should be available to English-speaking readers. So yeah, it was a process getting to the final text, but I think there's a lot of very key texts from Patočka there that I think will be appealing and find relevance in the Anglophone world.
So the publication is planned for the end of 2021, right?
Well, maybe a little bit longer, maybe spring 2022 at this point. There's a bit of delay with the publisher, but thankfully I'm on research sabbatical as of next semester, so be able to give my full attention to it, and we should be, we're submitting the manuscript in April, so.
Great. Please, everyone, feel free to ask questions or add some comments.
No, Jan.
I wanted only to thank you for this edition, because there are 3 translations and we use it. It was very helpful for us when we prepared the issue Bohemica Literaria. So great timing. Thank you very much.
Good job, Graham. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing about a select edition. It'll give some you know, some availability of like standardized English translations of some of Patočka's concepts. So that should be helpful for scholarship outside of English as well.
Yeah, I confirm, because I also used the English texts in my article, and it was really helpful to have already an English translation available. Yeah.
Yes, and Alex notes that Graham really did make everything happen, including the funding. So we owe the project to him. A massive thank you to him.
Well, it's been a great pleasure for me, because I run an arts organization. So today and Patočka's ideas about the arts are particularly vibrant for me and interesting for me. And I think very topical, actually, for the work that I do in the field of the arts. So it's been a great pleasure for me so far, and a great pleasure to work with such a great team, actually. Every time a translation comes from Alex, it's a great treat, and I always enjoy reading them as they come in, even in their near final form rather than their final form.
Thank you. Are there some other comments or questions?
I would have a question, if I may. Probably to Erin, if that's all right. I was wondering throughout all this discussion on the language of Patočka, which really seems to be much more accessible, at least to me, than other philosophers that he was influenced by. And for instance, Heidegger was, of course, mentioned already as much more mystical. And also in relationship to what Petr Fischer mentioned as his apprehension probably to abstract art, is the accessibility of Patočka's language some sort of intent that would be related to his concepts of duty towards community, and in general the importance that he would ascribe to our bearing towards the external world and towards the community, meaning, you know, not keeping to his own philosophical, I would say, circles. So is there an intent behind the accessibility of his language that would be related to the concept of responsibility towards the world?
Well, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I think you're the first person to ever describe his language as accessible. So I've one of the difficulties of the idea of expanding readership is that there is a lot of history of philosophy in Patočka, and a lot of kind of technical discussions having to do with Heidegger and Husserl and many other philosophers. So on that level, I don't think it is so accessible because if you're not, some of the texts are, some of the arts texts I think are more accessible, but those where he can't resist kind of going into the details of other people's philosophy, I think do pose a challenge for those who aren't familiar already with those philosophical ideas. But I do think that in response to your larger point about community, the fact that he's so Catholic in his tastes, you know, he's taking from Plato, he's taking from Husserl, he's taking from Heidegger. He's having dialogues with a lot of different philosophers in his writings, and I think that is an indication of his notion of community. There's this community of ideas, of thinkers that he wants to cultivate and, you know, extend this project of sort of thinking outward. And he does seem to see philosophy as a sort of communal and ongoing project. So on that level, I think he is writing in a way that suggests he sees himself as part of a pretty wide community. And he doesn't just want to specialize in sort of one sort of philosophical conversation, even though obviously the approach of phenomenology is the one that he is committed to. So yeah, good question.
Thank you.
Are there some other questions or comments? Feel free to join in the conversation. Well, in that case, I would like to thank everyone. I would like to thank all the contributors to the volume. We are really happy with the result, and we are happy that it's part of this larger discussion on Patočka and his legacy. So I'm really looking forward to the English anthology. I thank all the people who also contributed to this evening. The Czech Cultural Center, Czech Embassy, and the Consulary Section. I thank our students who prepared the workshop and who also joined in tonight for the discussion. I thank also to the colleagues who joined even from America, from the Czech Republic, to be with us for Europe tonight. And I'm really looking forward to other occasions on which we will be able to discuss Patočka's work.